I'm Randy Beardsley, and welcome back to the Beardsley Doctrine. Today, I'm going to address another significant issue that's causing our country to go in the wrong direction. This subject is our nation's disability program. This program, like lots of other programs, was created to fulfill a real need among our citizens. And even though this program is well outside the powers granted to the federal government in our Constitution, this is a program that in principle is widely supported by all Americans. But like lots of other well-intentioned programs, this program, through ignorance or bad intentions, uses our kindness against us to undermine our independence and our future. Let's take a look at Article 9. We reject the policies that have allowed millions of Americans to be deemed unable to work so that they can receive disability benefits. These benefits, unnecessary in many cases, drain money from our Social Security fund and the general fund. This is another program that's being used to mask the lack of opportunity in our country and to undermine our ability to stay free and independent. We support the creation of real opportunity in our country. We also support the evaluation of each disability case and merciful treatment to those that truly need it, but the elimination of benefits for those that are capable of participating in the workforce. So let's start with what is disability. Disability is an important benefit to help those in our society that can't help themselves. A benefit to help people with real disabilities such as autism, paralysis, blindness, or loss of significant function. This is a crucial benefit for those in need that were never able to take care of themselves or are unable to now. There are two paths to qualify to receive disability payments: Social Security disability and Supplemental Security income disability. The first way, Social Security disability, was established in 1960. If you worked long enough to qualify for Social Security benefits, then the Social Security taxes you paid during this time qualify you for disability insurance. And if you become disabled, you receive payments from the Social Security Trust Fund. And it's relatively easy to qualify for Social Security disability payments too, as it requires just 10 years of work. But it can be received even sooner in some cases. You've likely heard it more commonly called by its acronym SSDI. The second path to disability is to receive Supplemental Security income benefits. This program is a true welfare program. It was started at the state level because this type of benefit is well beyond the powers granted to the federal government in the Constitution. But the federal government consolidated these programs under their control anyway in 1974. These are disability payments for people who were always disabled or became disabled even before they worked long enough to qualify for Social Security disability. This program was intended for cases of incurable childhood diseases and conditions like autism, in those rare cases where a debilitating injury took place within those first 10 years of work. These payments aren't paid for by the Social Security Fund, since these people didn't work long enough to qualify for Social Security. Rather, these payments are paid out of the general fund that are funded through your payroll taxes. Even though the funding for these payments come from different accounts, both types of disability payments are managed by the Social Security Administration. And both of these programs not only have the consequence of consuming huge amounts of your hard-earned money that you paid in taxes, but the misuse and mismanagement of this program has several other detrimental consequences that negatively affect your future. That's why this issue has risen to the importance of being one of the top 20 articles required to fix our country. Now, why is this issue important to you? For starters, the enrollment of both of these programs has skyrocketed over the last 60 years and followed the same path of decline as almost every other metric that we've looked at over this time. Although we've seen a slight improvement over the last 10 years, there are still 16 million people enrolled in some type of disability program in our country. That's right. You have 16 million other dependents that you pay for that you don't get to claim on your tax return. And over 12 million of these people are working age Americans aged 18 to 64. In the balance, the other 4 million are spouses and children of the disabled or disabled children and senior citizens. The Social Security Disability Income Program pays benefits to almost 9 million Americans, and almost 8 million of them are working age Americans. 8 million people who should be working. But to give you a better understanding of how crazy this number is, I compared the percent increase in the number of working age Americans receiving Social Security benefits to the percent increase in our population since 1960. The red line shows the population increase, and the blue line shows the percent increase in the number of working age Social Security disability recipients during the same time frame. Yes, you're reading it correctly. There's been an over 1,600% increase in working age disabled Americans receiving Social Security disability since 1960. Even though our population has increased only 78% during this time. Hopefully this graph gives you a better understanding how fast this disabled group has grown compared to the population. This means that working age disability recipients have grown at a rate 20 times faster than the population in general. This disability program, it drains $140 billion a year from the Social Security Fund, which is about 12% of all the dollars paid out of Social Security. And now, 1 out of 7 people that draw funds from the Social Security Fund, they aren't even senior citizens. Instead, they're working age Americans that have been deemed disabled or their dependents. But that's only half the damage to the Social Security Trust Fund. Because these are 8 million working age Americans that could still be paying Social Security taxes into the fund. But instead, they're taking funds out. So if you're retired or ever plan to retire, this issue will have a large impact as to whether you're getting your retirement benefits. With disability payments draining about $12 billion a month from Social Security, it's no wonder that the Social Security Fund is soon to go bankrupt. Now let's talk about supplemental security income disability. Remember, these are disability benefits for people that never even worked long enough to qualify for Social Security benefits. A true welfare program based on need and paid for by other people like you. SSI program includes another 7.6 million disabled people. This program consumes over $63 billion of taxpayer money each year. And because it's paid out of the general fund, it's part of the $1 trillion+ yearly welfare tab that you pay for. The states were already paying out this disability to about 4 million people by the time the federal government took over this program in 1974. But we still managed to add almost 4 million more recipients since that time. This includes disabled working age Americans, disabled children, and disabled senior citizens, none of which worked long enough to earn Social Security disability benefits. But most troublesome is the increase in the disabled working age Americans in this group that are aged 18 to 64. These are people who should be working and paying taxes, but instead they're draining money from the general fund. Now, how many of these 7.6 million people are working age? There are 4.3 million working age Americans receiving SSI disability. Here I show the number of working age SSI disability recipients, how it's increased compared to the population. The red line shows the increase in the general population during this time, and the blue line shows the increase in the working age SSI recipients. The number of working age Americans receiving SSI disability money increased by 187% since 1974, even though the population only increased by 53%. Working age Americans receiving SSI disability has grown at a rate almost 4 times the rate of the growth of the population, even though during the same time period, the number of disabled elderly and disabled children in our country, they grew at a slower rate than the general population. Children and seniors receiving SSI disability only increased by 32% since 1974, while the general population 53%, but working age Americans receiving SSI disability grew by 187%. This doesn't make any sense to me. Now, when you combine these two disability programs, they pay out benefits to over 16 million Americans. 12 million of them are working age, and through our taxes, we pay out over $200 billion a year to other Americans to not work. And who knows how many millions more to manage these programs. But this program creates a lot more negative consequences than just the cost of these disability payments. Because it removes 12 million working age Americans from the labor force, it helps to create the false pretense that we need millions of illegal and legal immigrants to come here to work. Even though we have millions of workers here already getting paid by you to not work. These 12 million disabled Americans missing from the workforce, they drive up labor costs, which contributes to inflation and supply chain problems, so that you pay more for everything if you can even get it. It significantly reduces tax receipts to the general fund and the Social Security Trust Fund because we lose the tax payments of these 12 million working age disabled Americans. This lack of revenue causes you to pay more taxes. It drives up the national debt that you and your children have to pay for until our inevitable default, and it's helping to bankrupt the Social Security Trust Fund. It hides the loss of opportunity and jobs in our country by displacing these Americans to the disability rolls rather than the unemployment line. With many of our jobs already sold off to the highest foreign bidder, if these 12 million Americans came back to the workforce, the unemployment rate would skyrocket and expose the results of these failed policies. It drives up the cost of all the other welfare programs, because once you're deemed disabled, you qualify for a host of other welfare programs. Getting deemed disabled is like hitting the lottery for a lot of people, since often free food, health care, and housing all come with it. And of course, it's another vote-buying scheme at your expense that's created a new 16 million person voting bloc that's beholden to the government to survive. Another scheme where the government nullifies your vote by trading free benefits to disability recipients in exchange for their votes to vote for more failure. So as you can see, this failed policy plays a greater role than you think in perpetuating more failure in our country. Now let me qualify a couple things. First, I know it is impossible to bring back to the labor force all 12 million disabled working age Americans, or remove the other 4 million from the disability payrolls. Some have real disabilities. How many? I don't know. And disabled people are permitted to work limited hours and earn limited amounts of money and still receive their disability benefits. You can make a case on either side whether that makes sense. So some are completely absent from the workforce, and many, they just work under the table so they don't exceed the disability income limits or have to pay taxes like we do. The point is, it doesn't feel right to me that between these two programs, disabled Americans have increased at a rate 1,000% faster than the general population over the last 60 years. It doesn't feel right to me that there are about 12 million working age Americans in this group receiving disability benefits. This is a staggering number since there's only about 150 million people who are employed in non-farm payroll jobs in our whole country. This means there's a disabled person for almost every 10 working Americans. Now in Article 9, I state, I believe this increase in disability is a scheme to hide the loss of opportunity created by the selling off of our jobs to the highest foreign bidder. So I hope you're asking, where's the proof? Well, here it is. I show the loss of manufacturing jobs since 1974 in blue compared to the increase in working age disability recipients in red during the same time period. We lost 6 million manufacturing jobs at the same time that we added almost 8 million working age Americans to the disability rolls. Coincidence? I'll let you decide, but they correlate really well. Now just to make this clear, in 1974, there were almost 19 million manufacturing jobs in our country and only 4 million disabled workers. There were over 4.5 manufacturing jobs to every disabled worker. But today, there are about the same number of disabled working age Americans as there are manufacturing workers. This is crazy. And to add insult to injury to our union workers, there were 12 million private sector union jobs in 1983 and 4.4 million disabled working Americans. But today, 5 million union jobs are gone. All the jobs we had almost cut in half, and only 7 million left. But during the same time, the number of disabled working age Americans, they didn't get cut in half. Rather, they almost tripled in number to 12 million. There used to be almost 3 private sector union jobs for every disabled worker. Now it's opposite. There's almost 2 disabled workers for every private sector union member. This, among other things for this program, just doesn't feel right to me. Now, what am I proposing? What does supporting the Beardsley Doctrine mean on this issue? It means you believe in an individual audit is needed for every person receiving disability benefits, but not by judges or government bureaucrats who benefit by approving benefits at your expense. Rather, audits by teams of hardworking Americans who are paying for it. We have jury duty, we could have this. We have to determine if these people are truly disabled, and are they able to do the same things that you and I do every day? If they are, we need to get them back to work. We need to find out if there really are over 16 million disabled Americans in our country. But without your support, none of us will ever know. Without your support for this audit, this ever-growing, beholden to the government voting bloc will continue to grow and make your vote worthless, while at the same time bankrupting you. Without your support to get these Americans back to work, we may not find out until it's too late that our government sold off so many of our jobs that we've completely lost our independence and freedom. Now, in the end, we may find out there are still 12 million working age disabled Americans in our country. Unlikely, but possible. But if we do, all isn't lost, because we'll gain invaluable insight into where our government and our health systems have failed us. And if it's true that we still have those 16 million, we have a real national health emergency that's been ignored by our government and our health care providers. And we can start to correct the conditions that are disabling so many people. But we may also find out that 75% of these people have the same health issues that millions of American workers have. Yet the rest of us still get up and go to work every day. And now's a good time to get these people off the taxpayers' payroll, our payroll, and get them back to work. Either way, almost all people that receive disability benefits are looked down upon due to the wide perception of fraud in the system. So another benefit of this audit is that we can ensure that only Americans who are truly disabled are participating in this program. Confidence can be restored to this program, and dignity can be returned to the disabled people that require our help. The bottom line, this issue isn't only about money. It plays a negative role perpetuating several failed policies that are jeopardizing our future. In solving this disability issue now, it's critical to creating positive change for our country. I know there's a lot that we have to do. Some people just want to talk about what's wrong. Others are resigned to our demise and say nothing can be done. There are even some that believe leaving our country is the best solution for their family. But me, I'm not going anywhere. My forefathers built this country. They gave their life for this country, and I serve this country. This is my country. And if you believe this is your country too, then welcome aboard. Now, I know it's true that the enemies of our country, they're well-funded, they're deeply entrenched, but they lack in numbers and they rely on media deception, intimidation, and economic coercion to make Americans enforcers of this failure upon our country. If you're an American like me that just isn't ready to watch our government use the disability program against us to buy votes at our expense and hide the consequences of selling off of our jobs, then let's do something about it. I'll see you next time.